President Trump broke his own record for the longest State of the Union last night. It was a positive, uplifting speech about the goodness of America. So let's talk about something that happened last night and something that did not. The president stood before a joint session of Congress to deliver the State of the Union. The House chamber was filled, senators, representatives, Supreme Court justices, military leaders, guests in the balcony, cameras rolling. It's one of the rare moments in American life when all three branches of government are gathered in one room. And yet, a noticeable number of Democrat lawmakers chose not to attend. News organizations focused on the scale of the absence rather than a full roll call. Axios, for example, reported roughly half of House and Senate Democrats skipped the address. NPR and PBS described upward of 30 or more than 24 Democrats attending the People's State of the Union instead. And The Guardian said about 30 members gathered on the National Mall for a counter rally. Now, one report singled out at least one senior House Democrat by name, House Minority Whip Katherine Clark. She is among leadership who did not attend the speech in the chamber, according to ABC News. Now, let's look at this for a moment. This isn't about whether you agree with the president. It's not about party loyalty. It's not even about the policy proposals laid out in the speech. This is about the office of the president, because the State of the Union isn't a campaign rally. It's not a partisan fundraiser. It's a constitutional duty. The president is required to report to Congress on the state of the nation. That moment belongs to the entire country. When members of Congress decide not to show up, they're not just skipping a speech. They're absent from one of the core civic rituals of our republic. And that matters. They're skipping out on their duty. We've seen political tension before. Heated disagreements are nothing new in Washington. Presidents have delivered State of the Union addresses to chambers controlled by the opposing party many, many times in American history. Lawmakers sit stone-faced. They've withheld applause. They've visibly disagreed, but they showed up. There's something fundamentally different between sitting in silence and not being in the room at all. You agree? When elected officials boycott the address, the message isn't just opposition to a particular policy. It risks signaling disregard for the office itself. And that's where this protest is inexcusable. It's disrespectful to the office of the president, not to Donald Trump, but to the office itself, because respect for the office of the president isn't the same thing as endorsing the person holding it. You can oppose an agenda. You can vote against the legislation. You can criticize every line of the speech the next day. There's plenty of cable news outlets out there wanting to hear you. But the office, the constitutional role, deserves a level of institutional respect, and that's what we saw the Democrats withhold last night. That's what separates a constitutional republic from a cable news debate. The presidency doesn't belong to a party. It doesn't belong to a personality. It belongs to the American people. And the State of the Union is one of the few remaining moments where that principle is visible, where adversaries share the same chamber, even if they don't share the same views. Now, some of those skipped the speech would argue that they were just making a statement, that their absence was a form of protest. Fair enough. That's their right. But protests have consequences, especially when they involve the symbols and traditions that hold institutions together. When lawmakers opt out entirely, it kind of deepens the perception that our politics isn't just divided, it's unwilling to even coexist. It's unwilling to even have that conversation, to try to do the work of the people. And that's not a small thing, because Americans are watching. They see the applause lines. They watched last night. They saw the cold reactions. They saw the moments of unity and the moments of tension. But they also noticed the empty seats. And for many Americans, especially those outside of Washington, that bubble that's created within the Capitol, the expectation is very simple. You show up for work. You do the job that your people in your district elected you to do. You can argue. You can fight. You can debate fiercely, but you show up. The State of the Union is not about giving a president a standing ovation. It's about acknowledging the continuity of government. It's about affirming that no matter how divided we are politically, we still operate under one Constitution. We're all equal. And when members of Congress skip that moment, the optics are very powerful. Not because it changes the speech, not because it changes the vote count, but because it chips away at something that's a little more subtle. the shared civic framework that allows disagreement without institutional breakdown. Now, let's be honest. Both parties, at different times in modern history, have flirted with this same kind of protest. This isn't entirely new, but every time it happens, it nudges the bar a little bit lower. If we reach a point where members of Congress only show up when their party controls the White House, then we've reduced one of our most important constitutional moments to just another partisan event. And it's not supposed to be like that. You can be deeply critical of the president. You can believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. You can prepare a rebuttal that airs minutes after the speech ends, which we saw the Virginia governor do last night. But honoring the office by being present, even in your opposition, reinforces the strength of the system itself. That's the distinction. Disagreeing with the president is political. Disengaging from the office risks becoming institutional, and you're just simply not doing your job. And those are two very different things. At a time when trust in government is very fragile, when faith in institutions like the U.S. Congress are strained, symbolic acts carry weight, I believe. Empty seats carry weight. The American experiment has always depended on something deeper than agreement. It depends on shared respect for the roles that we all play, for the process, for the structure. Last night, the president fulfilled a constitutional obligation. The question many Americans are asking today is whether every member of Congress treated that moment with the seriousness it deserves. Because in the end, this isn't about applause lines. It's about whether we still believe the office of the president, regardless who's in it, not Donald Trump, but the office of the president, regardless who's in it, I repeat, deserves to be treated with dignity in the one chamber where the people's representatives gather. And that's a conversation worth having, not as partisans, but as citizens of this beautiful United States of America. We have to make sure that we hold people accountable. Those Democrats who did not show up last night should be ashamed of themselves. And I hope, I don't have a lot of belief that they will, but I hope that the party will point that out. I hope that someone will hold them responsible and let them know that they embarrassed themselves, they embarrassed their party, and they embarrassed the office that they hold. You agree? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com.